Welcome to the fifth episode of our Transformative Talk series, where we talk with leaders in financial services that are driving significant transformation journeys. I'm Jitendra Kulkarni, Senior Vice President and CGI's Toronto Financial Services Business Unit Leader. Today we have with us Richard Jardim, Senior Executive Vice President, Chief Technology and Information Officer at CIBC. Richard has been leading CIBC's transformation agenda, driving innovation, shaping culture, and helping the organization embrace technologies like AI while keeping people at the heart of change. Welcome, Richard, to this talk.
Thanks, Jiten. Appreciate you having me.
Richard, transformation means different things to different organizations. My question was what does it mean for CIBC and how do you see it? Do you see it as a continuous journey or do you see it as time-boxed program?
So great question, Jiten. And I think the dynamics have changed around us. So I think in the old days, transformation seemed a little bit more fixed. You had a certain program. I think of the days of cloud, where we're going to transform onto the cloud, and it was one thing, and we ended up doing a lot of planning, and then we put a business case together, and we put timelines, and we got it all approved, and then we went down the path of starting that program, and then you finish it, and at the end of it, you could say we've transformed ourselves, right? Yeah. I think those days are over. So the way things are changing around us is that there's rapid exponential impacts of new technologies like AI. So transformation now has to become a constant thing. Yeah. It is a constant change that we have to embrace. There's opportunities and there's risks with it as well. So I think at CIBC, we now think of it as a constant dynamic. Is this transformation we need to do? And what we do is you've got to break it into bite-sized chunks now, right? So you need to be able to really think about almost on a quarterly basis, not even an annual basis. Yeah. We need to embrace some of the newer things and capabilities, and we have to be able to apply those to maximize business value and client impact. So it becomes a thing we keep doing. Within that continuum, we still need to have structure. So that's where we still have to have specific programs. We still have to fund things. We still have a business case. We still have to look at the paybacks we're going to get. And so breaking into smaller pieces, you create that structure and direction, but it allows us to pivot. And then I think we end up in a situation where we have the best of both. But it's not a one-time thing anymore. It is just constant.
But it's a great point. Like you talked about, because it's not a green field. So you're running the bank, there are a lot of regulatory obligations. So they run the bank and then you're transforming the bank. So there's a structure which is there for this entire program. But at the same time, there is agility and there is embracing the changes which are required on the fly, because the way the things are changing. How do you balance between these two?
Transformation is an ongoing activity. Yeah. I think you do need discipline. You do need to have prioritization. And so I think it actually helps people to embrace change a bit when you put a bit of structure underneath it, right? Yeah. While we still try and grow that muscle that people have to be able to embrace all the different left turns, right turns we see almost on a monthly basis. So to do that, we also have to keep in mind, to your point, that we are a bank. We're highly regulated. Yeah. So even when we're going through transformation, we have to make sure that we have a structured way of addressing the risk around us, and that we actually keep in mind our things like, privacy of our client data as we run AI models on our client data or any kind of internal or sensitive data. So I think that having that structure gives a way for folks to feel like the transformation has some control around it and actually gives people direction. Yeah. So I think that balance is actually something that's a differentiator if you do it right, which is don't make it one thing, make it a cultural change that you're investing in with your people and your talent, but then give some structure within that to make sure that all the things we have to deliver on, including making sure that we stay on side with our regulatory, risks, et cetera. Yeah. And then, so that way, I think what you get is a bit of the best of both worlds. But, right now we're going through a lot of thinking about how do we get really lean on the priorities where we do have to be very specific on what we're delivering. And with examples with our tech modernization program now, well, what we've done is we've chopped it into smaller pieces. So each year we sort of go back and say, here's what we're going to deliver over the next few months. Yeah. We make some estimates on the paybacks and the benefits to our business and our clients. and then we execute on that. And so it's just a way of allowing us to move forward with some structure, but we still go back more frequently for funding and prioritization to make sure we're doing the right things. And AI is entering into that equation more and more.
Yeah.
And so we find that's a good way to approach.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So every transformation journey, it comes with set of hurdles. And I'm sure that there are many, but if you really look at like what are the top 3 things which you would say that are challenging when you're looking at all this ongoing transformation?
A great question. And there's absolutely challenges in transforming. And so I would knock off 3. One is our legacy footprint and legacy platforms. We're a bank. We have many old platforms that work very well, but they're just legacy, and they tend to be not as scalable as we would like. They tend to have high costs attached to them. When you want to put change on top of those platforms, it ends up being more expensive, and we're not very agile. So one of the obstacles for us is making sure that we don't just throw AI, for example, on top of these old legacy platforms. So in the days of digital, that often would happen. People would build a nice digital front end on top of a lot of old infrastructure and platforms. While you get the client experience, the costs end to end become quite high, and then you end up being kind of slow to actually be able to react to bigger changes. So, that obstacle and that challenge is there. What we're doing about it is we've been modernizing many parts of our platforms across the bank. We have some newer focus now, especially in the retail space, where we have some of the bigger legacy core banking platforms, which are painful and difficult to replace. But now with some of the newer AI capability to do legacy code migration, some of the newer offerings out in the marketplace, software platforms, we can actually think about replacing and upgrading some of these legacy environments. So that's one obstacle. It's expensive, it's complex, but you need to do it. The second challenge is around talent. So I think 2 things I would mention there within that second challenge is, one is, we need to upskill and invest in our talent because of all the things that are changing around us. So leveraging AI and newer skills takes investing in our people. So, training them, being able to give them some new muscle to be able to leverage those tools and capabilities is really important. And then it's also attracting new talent. Right. So we want to be able to attract the best new talent to the bank and make sure that we give them a path to experience what we believe will be a great journey to give our clients the best product out there. And to do that as well, we want a diverse workforce. So we need to really make sure that we think about diversity in that footprint. It makes us stronger as a culture. And so that's the second challenge, is making sure that we focus on our talent. The third one is change management mindset. So many of us grew up in a world where change happened, as I said before in the first challenge, more in little chunks. And now what you're seeing is it's happening even more rapidly. And we end up in an environment where change management muscles are needed for our leaders and for our people. So they're not scared about what's happening around us, but they actually feel like we're supporting them, and they have those muscles to be able to adapt very quickly to the world around us. So I think, having, again, a focus on upgrading and modernizing our legacy infrastructure helps us to be more agile with AI and the newer capabilities. Second one is investing in our talent, and attracting new talent is a challenge, and we need to really, really stay on top of it. And the third one is making sure that we instill a change management culture and mindset across the bank, so that we can actually be the best, client-oriented financial institution out there.
So the last challenge which you talked about, it really comes to culture, and I've seen like a lot of time you spend or your leadership spends on talking to people, making those connections, making that change happen. I wanted to ask a specific question on culture, because all this in a large organizations is also changing the culture. And how are you doing that in CIBC?
So if I step back, one thing that we're very proud of at CIBC is we believe we have an exceptional culture, and we win awards for being, very diverse in our talent footprint, how involved we are in our communities, how much we have cross connectivity between our businesses. I think is a differentiator for CIBC. We pride ourselves in working horizontally across the bank. So we already have a cultural sort of positive advantage, we feel. I think what we need to do is to be able to make sure that we have that strong culture is be transparent with our workforce. Be transparent that the world is changing. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to help ride this wave with you and invest with you in those skill sets. And we're going to make sure that we communicate even more with respect to what are our priorities, what do we need to win at. So I think the cultural goal for us is to make sure we have a really connected workforce that is invested in continually and feels like they have very clear direction of when we're going, even within a world around us that's extremely volatile. So, that ends up being a differentiator. I'd say diversity, just to touch on that, we've observed this, right? We need to reflect the footprint of our clients in having a diverse workforce, So we've seen the power of diversity on the ground at CIBC. And so I think we have to double down on making sure we have a very diverse workforce. And that takes work and it takes commitment. But it's been proven that it allows us to win.
Yeah. And with all the things which we're talking about AI, the diversity really brings a lot of value. Because how your models are going to be trained and who is influencing those models. So that's going to be critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Coming back on AI, you have been making significant investments and changes in AI, and CIBC has been leading in this space. You launched CIBC AI. So that was the first, and I've seen a lot of initiatives where you're talking about AI for changing the end user experience as well as for your own people. Okay, so can you double click on the journey on AI and what's next things for you to come? And what's the path forward? Yeah.
I feel like as CTO, I joke that I'm the chief AI officer, it seems, as all the questions around AI continually, and which makes sense given how much is shaping the world. I think, we try to make sure that we're, seen as leaders in the space, but we also don't want to be bleeding edge. So we want to be in the mix and pushing ahead in certain areas where we think AI can give us that competitive advantage. So the approach we've taken was first of all, because we're a bank, we spent a lot of time setting out our governance and risk framework around leveraging AI, right? So that was really important. And so investing in that gives you long-term benefits because you have a good framework, right, around trust of your data and also ensuring the models are sound, that you have all the right vetting processes and reporting and controls and risk around onboarding new models, making sure that's in place. And that gives you an advantage if you get that right. And we believe we've done a really good job with that. The second bit is trying to give these tools out to what I call our knowledge workers, which is really everyone at the bank, rather than just saying one specific business, we're going to focus on model X or model Y. So we took the approach. It's not unique in the marketplace for sure, but we decided to offer up Kai, which is our chat GBT sort of to the masses with the CIBC controls around it and firewalls. So we now can ensure that all of our knowledge workers have access to leverage this Kai platform, which has different recipes in it. And those recipes allow you to do different things like meeting summarization or creating PowerPoints or whatever it may be you want to be able to use with those recipes. And that just allows all our knowledge workers to end up leveraging it in the way they need to make their jobs more efficient and allow them to actually focus on more high value work. So that was one of
contributing your own recipes to that.
Exactly. So now we have the ability for folks to create their own recipes on Kai. But the punchline is that this is about enabling our workforce to leverage these tools in a safe way. And so we had to create our own sort of Kai platform using the ChatGPT engine. So it's been really, really powerful. The second bit is we also did some other work where things like our Knowledge Central platform, which is, was thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of procedures that a frontline would access to answer questions when clients came in or whatever it may be. We ended up putting that into a sort of a Gen AI framework so that you can interact with all those procedures and this whole thousands and thousands of pages and actually get the answers to the questions that you have when you're actually doing your job in the front line. So that's another one we focused on, which has more impact on, it's called a large part of our knowledge worker base. And then now what we're doing is doubling down on very specific use cases with our business partners where we think we have the most value. So we have things like document ingestion, which is, used by the legal team and many different folks, and things like charting notes and wealth and credit narratives in the cap markets, corporate banking space, et cetera. So we think the balance is really quite good. I think the concern though a bit is that everyone is on this race. And so I think
yeah.
for us, you think you're ahead on some things and then you realize you're suddenly behind on those things. So I think for us, having a measured, focused strategy is the way to go, and trying to be very sharp on where do we see the most business value and client impact and employee impact with rolling out AI.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good approach. And then leveraging partners as it makes sense for us, and also having we build it in tech, the foundations, right, is making sure we have some flexibility to plug in different models, because every few months it changes, right? Which LLMs out there are the most impactful and et cetera. So I think creating a bit of that mindset around flexible platform so we can adapt through time is a good one. So, are we ahead or not? Hard to say, but I think we're doing the right things at the bank, and we're making sure that we prioritize in the right way.
Yeah. But coming to that, like you talked about your AI journey, and while we were talking about AI, suddenly in last 6-7 months, people started talking about quantum, and suddenly it came into limelight. I have always seen you connecting the technologies and business. Like, so from that point of view, like what are more, like how the bank will transform itself? Like what are the new things which CIBC is doing or plans to adopt? Because technology is going to be one of the tools, but you're changing your business models. And so how do you, like, can you talk about that?
If I had the crystal ball, it would be great. I think, again, it goes back to having an agile workforce and having agile leadership, where we can start to really think about where could we have a competitive advantage with some of these newer emerging technologies. So we track emerging technologies. Yeah. We've had director sessions with our board to educate them all the way up to the board levels on things like quantum and Gen AI further back when it was first a new thing, et cetera. So I think the way we look at it is you've got to look at it from, again, of business value and client impact. And some of the new emerging technologies like quantum can have a very negative impact, right? Risks around, breaking encryption and all that stuff, which could impact us from our cybersecurity point of view, but then opportunities with quantum around, can we use it for optimizing, portfolio and asset management for our clients? So we look at it from both sides of the coin. And I think that it's important for the business to be involved in the discussion, so lead often the opportunities with emerging technologies. So I think we have innovation in our DNA at CIBC. There's many things going back to 150 years where we were the first at the table with new things. And I remember from a tech point of view, I was already at CIBC. We were the first bank to have a mobile app that we partnered with Apple on, right? On the iPhone. So we have this DNA of being innovative. And so I think in the space, when we enter into now with new things down the road, we need to have that mindset. And I would say ultimately, all of this should really be about our clients, right? So I think the ability for clients to have personalized real-time interactions with their banking services on the mobile or online banking, I think is where AI and some of the newer emerging technology can come into, including augmented reality, is how can we enhance the experience for our clients and be better than our competitors? So that's what it's all about in the end.
You shared great insights on how CIBC is balancing the agility with structure when you're talking about transformation journey. And there are a lot of things which you're handling today and you're in front of it. I wanted to ask about the personal leadership style. How your leadership, like what you'll say about your leadership, because in this changing environment, and how your personal experiences have shaped your leadership style.
Well, it's a kind of loaded question, I guess, on incorporating my whole life probably contributes to how I manage people and lead people. So maybe I'll just highlight a few things that stick out for me. So one thing is, if I think about the type of job that I have as CTO, especially now doubling down with the change around us, is I think resiliency is one key thing that I know I do have, and I think is pretty important, because trying to stay even keeled and stay calm, stay focused with all the stuff going around, the pressures that we have. And I have a big team that I lead. And so trying to balance all that, I think resiliency really helps. And if I look back to my past and my personal life, growing up, I moved all different places. I lived in England, in Denmark, in Toronto. My parents moved to the US as well. And so just having to honestly move when I was growing up and make new friends and adapt to new surroundings, I think honestly actually helped me become a little bit more resilient. And then also, I left home when I was just turning 18 and never went back and lived at home again, and just ended up sort of being very self-sufficient, and then went and actually worked in Europe after university for a while, and then traveled for months and months and months in all different countries, including spending quite a chunk of time in India. I think all those things just help me with some resilience and adaptability, which I think is one of the key things that's important today. I think also being able to put yourself in the seat of the business or my employees. Like, I've been on the business side for many years. That's where I started my career, not in technology. And so I think understanding where the business is coming from and where the clients are coming from really helps me lead my teams in a way that's very business focused, which I think gives a bit of an edge and also makes it a bit more motivational for people to know that we're tight with the business. There's value in everything we're doing, not just tech for the sake of tech. Yeah. I think also being transparent and leading by example. And also, we don't have all the answers. I'm pretty open to admitting that I don't have all the answers, especially with the environment we're in now. So I think that sometimes that openness is a way I tend to lead. And also, I think trying to be very, very focused on key priorities is a skill set that sometimes is hard because there's so many choices. You have to really narrow down and make the call. So those are some of the things. And then in my personal life, just to add a few more things, I always tell my teams and my leaders and folks when I'm at town halls is you need to have a passion or some things to de-stress and to make sure that you have a balanced life, right? So whether it's focus on family, focus on, I do all sorts of sports and skiing and running and cycling and did, martial arts for 30 years and taught that. It just gives you a balance, I think, in your life and how you lead that I think is really important. I could end up working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and still be behind in many ways, right? I'm sure you're the same. So I think you have to sort of step back a lot and absorb and listen to people, and which is another skill set that not everyone has. You need to listen and then absorb and then make decisions and lead that way. So those are some of the things I found have been effective. And I think that doubling down now with the pace that's happening on those key things are really important. And I'll leave you with one last piece of advice that I was given many years ago that stays with me all the time is don't spend time or efforts on things that you can't control or stress on things you can't control. And there's so many things that we can't control. Don't focus on those things. Focus on the things you can control. And that's where you're going to get the best value, right? So I think whether it's in your personal life, which is not always easy to do, or whether it's in your work life, I think that's something that sticks with me all the time. If I find myself going off track a bit, I'm like, is that something I can control? Is this something that's going to actually add value to what I'm doing? So, really so I think that's, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. And you talked about the things you cannot control. And today there are a lot of things which are not under our control in the world, like what's going on. And a lot of these internal changes which you're doing in the organization. I'm sure, and I have seen this, that you have been working with a lot of partners. And we are, at CGI, we are really proud to be partnering with you on a lot of these transformation journeys. What mindset and behavior you feel that we should adopt to be the great partners with you?
That's a great question. I've been asked it before, and you and I have talked about this before, I talked with it, all the way up to Francois before about it. Like, what type of partnership is important for us? And to me, I see it in a couple of different ways. One thing is a partnership has to be two ways, right? We've gone through negotiating contracts before. It's part of the job, right? Both sides need to feel like they're winning or that they've got something from a contract or the partnership. So it has to go two ways. I think if you approach a partnership from, it's got to be the way I say it, and that's it, and you end up with a partner that's an order taker, that doesn't last very long and it doesn't end up being strategic. So I always approach partnerships very much as two-way, which means there has to be a level of trust there, right? And there has to be an element of delivery on both sides, and there has to be listening on both sides. That's what makes the partnership with CGI exceptionally strong. I've always said we trust CGI as a partner, right? And that's big, right? Because we have many other cases around us where there's predatory pricing and all sorts of relationships that are not two-way. So I think what we look for is a partner that's trusted. It's a two-way benefit to interacting with that partner like yourselves, and also being strategic, right? You know us really well, and some of our other partners do as well. Come to us and tell us how you can help us in the most optimized way, right? Don't just sell us stuff. It's about solutioning for us. And I think that when I think of all the products that we've helped stand up at the bank, I mean, CGI has been part of many of those journeys. and have had big impacts on our clients. So, and I think that way both sides win. But it takes work.
Yeah.
And I find when you get complacent with a relationship, same in your personal life, same in the work environment, things start to slowly drift away and then you're not connected. So I think, we stay very connected with the CGI team, and same with other key partners we have. And if you have an issue, and you and I have had, as any partnership, we've had challenges before with a specific project or an initiative, and or sorting through a contract or something. We've always found a way to actually attack that right out the gate and work through issues and challenges and still keep the relationship, and that strengthens it. And I would say that's all the way to the very top of CGI. We've seen that. So,
Richard, thanks a lot for the partnership and the great insights which you shared today.
Yeah, and thanks very much for the partnership with CGI, and also for letting me talk a little bit about my experience as a CTO. And it's an incredibly exciting time, and I think many of us are on a journey right now.
And thanks everyone for watching.